Ladies and gentlemen, gather round, for I will tell you a tale not of a hero who shines with brilliant light, but of a king who rules from the shadows of despair. A being so tragic, so powerful, that his very name is whispered like a curse on the wind. This is the complete life story of the being known only as the Monarch of Plagues. Close your eyes and picture it. Not a grim, dark fantasy, but the vibrant, emotionally charged world of a Korean anime. Our story begins not in a castle of bones, but in a realm of breathtaking beauty, a hidden, sacred grove where the very air shimmered with mana. Here, he was born not as a monarch, but as a guardian spirit, a being of pure life and healing. His touch made flowers bloom, his song cured sickness. He was nature's gentle smile. Imagine, if you will, the very beginning. Not in a world of gray despair, but in a realm of such vibrant, almost impossible beauty that it feels like a living painting. This is the Seonghwa Forest, the forest of celestial blossoms, a place untouched by time or mortal tread. Here, the air doesn't just shimmer, it sings. Tiny motes of light, like benevolent spirits, dance on every breeze, and the trees themselves pulse with a soft, internal luminescence. This is a sanctuary of pure, unadulterated life energy, or GI, and it was here that our story's central figure first awoke. He did not have a name, not in the way we understand them. He was simply the guardian. A being woven from the very essence of the forest, from the resilience of ancient bark, the delicate perfume of nocturnal blossoms, and the gentle flow of sacred streams. His form was neither fully human nor entirely beast, he was a sublime confluence of nature's finest artistry. Perhaps he had the antlers of a majestic stag, twined with glowing vines and flowers that bloomed and closed with his every breath. His eyes held the deep, knowing calm of a thousand-year-old sequoia, and his skin, if one could call it that, had the texture of sun-dappled moss and smooth, warm stone. When he moved, it was with the grace of falling leaves, and a trail of blooming footsteps followed in his wake. His purpose was as pure as his origin, to nurture, to protect, and to heal. He was the heart of the forest. With a touch, he could mend the broken wing of a sparrow, the fibers of feather and bone knitting together under a golden light. With a soft, melodic hum, a sound that seemed to be made of rustling leaves and trickling water, he could coax a barren patch of earth into a riot of color and life. Sickened animals would seek him out, and he would lay his hands upon them, drawing out their sickness as a visible, dark mist, which he would then dissolve into nothingness with a gentle sigh. He was a testament to the idea that true strength lies not in dominion, but in compassionate guardianship. The forest was his body, and he was its soul. The first humans to stumble into Seonghwa Forest were not conquerors, they were lost, desperate, and dying. A group of refugees, fleeing a brutal war that ravaged the lands beyond, collapsed at the forest's edge, their bodies racked with famine and a strange, necrotic plague that blackened their skin. The guardian watched them from the shadows, not with suspicion, but with a profound, aching pity. He saw their pain, the flickering of their life flames, and his nature compelled him to act. He emerged not as a fearsome deity, but as a shy, radiant presence. The refugees, in their terror, initially recoiled, but the guardian simply knelt beside their sickest child, a little girl whose breath was a ragged, shallow thing. He placed his hands upon her fevered brow, and a light, so warm and so brilliant, erupted from his touch. The black veins of sickness receded, color returned to her cheeks. And she opened her eyes, clear and bright. A collective gasp, then tears of relief. They saw him not as a monster, but as a God-sent savior. For a time, a fragile, beautiful peace existed. The refugees built a small, respectful village at the forest's edge. The guardian taught them which berries were safe, which herbs held healing properties, and which streams were sacred. They, in turn, offered him songs and simple gifts of woven grass. He began to trust them. He allowed himself to feel a connection he had never known, the warmth of gratitude, the bond of shared existence. He learned their names. He laughed with their children. This was his fatal mistake. He learned to love them. But human memory is tragically short, and greed is a weed that grows in any soil. The village leader, a man named Lord Choi, was a former warlord. While he was grateful for his salvation, his warrior's mind saw the guardian not as a friend, but as a weapon. A healer of such power could create an army of unkillable soldiers. The very life energy of the forest could be harnessed, bottled, and sold to kings and emperors. It was a fortune and a power beyond any mortal dream. The betrayal was not a grand, chaotic battle. It was a quiet, premeditated act of profound cruelty. Lord Choi approached the guardian, his face a mask of false grief. "Great guardian," he pleaded, "my daughter, she has fallen ill once more, with a sickness worse than before. She rests in a sacred cave where the energy is purest. Please, you must come quickly. You are our only hope." Trusting, filled with concern for the child he had saved once before, the guardian followed without hesitation. The cave was not a place of pure energy, it was a prison. The walls were inscribed with ancient, forbidden runes designed not to kill, but to contain and corrupt spiritual energy. As the guardian stepped inside, the runes flared to life, binding him in chains of searing light. He cried out, not in anger, but in confused hurt, his eyes seeking Lord Choi's for an explanation. What he saw shattered him. The greed in the man's eyes was a poison more virulent than any plague. Lord Choi's men emerged, holding devices of dark, jagged iron, artifacts designed to siphon and store spiritual power. They plunged them into the guardian's body. The process was not a quick death, it was a slow, agonizing inversion. They weren't just taking his power, they were polluting it. They fed his pure GI with their own concentrated malice, their ambition, their violence. The vibrant, life-giving energy that flowed from him was forced back in, now tainted and black. We witnessed this in horrifying, cinematic detail, the beautiful floral patterns on his skin withering and turning the color of bruised flesh. His antlers, once crowned with blossoms, now sprouted grotesque, fungal growths. His eyes, once calm and deep, swirled with a sickly, phosphorescent green as the light of life within him was snuffed out and replaced by the chilling glow of decay. He did not simply become evil. He was unmade and remade. The very core of his identity, a healer, a protector, was twisted into its most horrific opposite. The love he had learned for humanity curdled into a hatred as vast and all-consuming as the universe itself. In that moment, as his final scream of betrayal echoed through the cave, the guardian died. And from his fallen form, drenched in the poison of those he sought to save, the Monarch of Plagues drew his first, ragged breath. His kingdom was no longer a forest of life, but the entire world of man, which he now saw as a festering wound begging to be cleansed. The true horror of the Monarch of Plagues does not lie in summoning demons from another dimension, but in his absolute mastery over the world that already exists. His power is a profound and terrifying perversion of the natural order, a dark alchemy that twists the building blocks of life into instruments of death. He is the ultimate corrupter, and his arsenal is the very world around us. Before his fall, as the guardian, his touch was a symphony of creation, coaxing DNA to repair, cells to multiply, and life to flourish. Now, that same intimate understanding of life's code is used to write a requiem. He doesn't create new viruses in a lab, he simply listens to the whispers of a body, the latent cancer cells, the dormant genetic diseases, the common bacteria on the skin, and he gives them a single, malicious command: evolve. A hero clad in the finest armor rushes into battle, only to feel a sudden, sharp pain in their own chest. The monarch has looked upon them and triggered the uncontrolled, explosive replication of a single, harmless heart cell, turning their own vital organ into a traitorous bomb. This is his cardiac rupture technique, a chillingly personal assassination using the victim's own body as the weapon. His control extends beyond the individual to the very ecosystem. The air we breathe becomes his medium. He can concentrate common pollen and mold spores, rewriting their simple biological instructions until a single breath fills a soldier's lungs with a fast-acting, choking mycelium that blooms from the inside out. This is not a magical poison, it is a manipulated, accelerated natural process. A lush, green battlefield can become a nightmare in moments as he taps into the fungal network beneath the soil, the mycelial, wood-wide web, and commands it to erupt in grotesque, towering fruiting bodies that release neurotoxic spores. The environment itself turns against you, and the air becomes thick with a shimmering, beautiful, and deadly haze. This theme of corrupted purity is most viscerally seen in his creations, which he doesn't so much summon as cultivate. The grief-sown horrors, for example, are born from his own emotional fallout. A single tear of rage and despair, black and tarry, hits the ground. Instantly, it acts as a supercharged fertilizer, causing the local flora and fauna to warp and merge into a shambling, monstrous entity. These aren't demons, they are twisted trees, animated by a grotesque fusion of animal muscle and pulsating, phosphorescent fungi. They are living, breathing monuments to his suffering, a constant reminder that his power is born from a beautiful thing that was broken. Perhaps his most psychologically devastating ability is his influence over the sick and dying. In a city gripped by a common cold, he can become a puppet master of misery. He can amplify the sniffles and coughs of 1,000 citizens, weaving their collective exhalations into an invisible, airborne miasma that spreads despair and weakness, sapping the will to fight from an entire population. He is the plague bearer, the lord of pandemics, turning society's most vulnerable moments into his greatest strength. To face the monarch of plagues is to face the horrifying realization that your own body, the air you breathe, the very ground you stand on, and the community you depend on can all be turned into weapons against you. He is not an invader, he is the ultimate insider threat, a king whose throne is built upon the corrupted beauty of the natural world he once swore to protect. To view the monarch of plagues as a mere villain seeking destruction is to misunderstand his character completely. His reign of terror is not an end in itself, but a means to a terrifyingly serene, almost divine, conclusion. He is an eco-terrorist on a cosmic scale, a disillusioned god who has diagnosed the world with a terminal illness and believes that only through a final, absolute cleansing can true peace be restored. His goal is not to rule over a world of suffering, but to preside over a world where suffering, and the creatures who cause it, are no more. In his broken psyche, the original betrayal was not an isolated incident, but the definitive symptom of humanity's inherent flaw. He sees our species as a parasitic organism, a cancer of consciousness. Our cities are metastatic growths scarring the land. Our wars are violent fevers. Our greed is a relentless consumption that devours everything in its path. From his perspective, he is the world's immune system, finally kicking into a catastrophic, all-out response to eradicate the infection. This is not a plan born of simple hatred, but of a twisted, heartbreaking logic. He loved the world in its pure, natural state, and he is now performing what he believes is a mercy killing to save it from its ultimate tormentor, us. This philosophy transforms his actions from mindless evil into a chilling form of ritualistic purification. When he unleashes a blight that withers a kingdom's crops, he doesn't see starving children, he sees the cessation of a human settlement that was slowly choking the earth. When he commands a river to run with pestilence, he is severing a vein that connected and sustained the human disease. The silence that follows in his wake, the absence of chattering voices, clanging swords, and rumbling industry, is, to him, not a void, but a symphony. It is the sound of the world healing, of nature slowly, patiently, reclaiming its space without the constant, noisy interference of mankind. This creates a profound and unsettling internal conflict within him, a tragic nobility that makes him so compelling. He does not take pleasure in the individual death throes of a soldier or the cries of a plague-stricken village. In fact, he seems to move through these scenes with a detached, melancholic resolve, like a surgeon performing a necessary, if gruesome, amputation. He may even pause to gently touch a wilting flower amidst the devastation, his touch momentarily reverting to its old, healing nature, allowing the blossom one last moment of vibrant life before he moves on to continue his work of annihilation. These small, quiet moments reveal that the guardian is still in there, buried deep, screaming in horror at what the monarch is doing, yet utterly convinced there is no other way. His endgame is a world returned to a pristine, pre-human state. A globe-spanning forest reclaiming the concrete of cities, oceans teeming with life unburdened by fishing nets, and skies clear of smoke, filled only with the sound of wind and bird calls. It is a world of breathtaking beauty and absolute stillness. He envisions himself not as a king holding court, but as the last sentinel, a solitary figure standing watch over a quiet, peaceful planet. He would be the only memory of the disease that once was, a permanent guardian ensuring it never returns. This goal makes him virtually unstoppable, for he cannot be reasoned with by appealing to the value of human life. In his eyes, that value is the very root of the problem. To save the world he loves, he must become the monster that destroys the one we live in. The final, and most crucial, layer of the Monarch of Plagues tragedy is that his ultimate enemy is never a stranger. The hero who rises to challenge him is not some chosen one from a distant prophecy, but a living, breathing consequence of his own past, a soul intrinsically linked to the very moment of his shattering. This personal connection transforms their conflict from a simple battle of good versus evil into a raw, emotional reckoning, a dramatic confrontation that is the heart of any great Korean anime narrative. This hero is most often the last descendant of Lord Choi, the warlord, who orchestrated the original betrayal. Imagine the weight this protagonist must carry. Their family name is the source of all this suffering, the blood in their veins is the same that spilled the Guardians. They are not just fighting to save the world, they are fighting to atone for an ancestral sin they themselves did not commit. Every time they face the monarch, they are met with a chilling reminder: you carry the face of my tormentor. You are the living proof of why humanity must end. This creates a hero plagued by doubt and a desperate need to prove they are different, that humanity can be better than its worst mistakes. Their journey is one of breaking a cursed legacy. Alternatively, the connection can be even more direct and painful. The hero could be the very child the guardian first saved, now grown. She witnessed his kindness firsthand, felt the warmth of his healing touch, and called him a friend. Now, she must face the monstrous entity he has become, a being whose despair was born from the betrayal of the community she belonged to. Her pleas are not the generic cries of a hero, but the personal, gut-wrenching appeals of a friend trying to call a lost soul back from the abyss. Remember the forest, she might scream during a clash of powers, tears streaming down her face. Remember how you healed me. That is who you are. This forces the monarch to confront a living memory of his former self, a ghost from a time before his heart was poisoned, making their every encounter emotionally devastating. The conflict between them is therefore fought on two parallel battlegrounds, the physical and the philosophical. While their powers clash in spectacular, animation-worthy sequences, the hero's pure, life-affirming energy, a brilliant gold or azure blue, against the monarch's sickly, corrupting greens and purples, their true battle is a war of words and ideals. The hero embodies the argument for redemption, for growth, and for the beautiful, fragile potential within humanity. They fight to protect a world of messy, imperfect, but ultimately good people. The monarch, in turn, is not a raving lunatic but a devastatingly articulate philosopher of despair. He counters every plea with the cold, hard evidence of human history. You speak of love, he might say, his voice a sorrowful whisper that carries over the battlefield. Yet it was love that made me vulnerable to their betrayal. You speak of a few good souls, but I have seen the countless multitudes crushed by greed and power. Show me one kingdom that has lasted in peace. Show me one era without war. You cannot. It is their nature. He forces the hero to defend the indefensible, to find hope in a history drenched in blood. This makes their final confrontation inevitable not just for the fate of the world, but for the closure of their shared story. The monarch cannot achieve his goal of a silent world while this living reminder of his past still fights for a noisy, chaotic future. Similarly, the hero cannot truly move forward into a new era while the walking, talking embodiment of humanity's greatest sin still looms over them. One must ultimately convert or destroy the other. Their battle is a dramatic, heart-rending climax where every blow is struck with the weight of shared history, and the outcome will determine not just who survives, but which version of the past, one of hope or one of betrayal, will define the future.